Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Astrology University podcast, the Cosmic Eye Forecast. And we're here for Aries season. Woohoo!
Yay!
We have to do some kind of yay, woohoo at the beginning for Aries season. Vanessa and I both have our red on, and the only red shirt that I have, for those of you who are listening to the audio version and can't see the video, it says food fight. So it's got fight in the title. So I thought that was appropriate. It's actually a t-shirt for a vegan grocery store in Portland, or what used to be a vegan grocery store in Portland. I think they closed, but used to be a cool hipster hangout. And Vanessa showed up in her awesome red attire as well. So we're rocking the red for Aries season.
So red. And I think food fights like Aries Taurus cuspy.
Right? Yeah, totally. Definitely.
Yes. So let's get into, hi Tony, hi everyone. Let's get into Aries vibes. Let's just do it. The Aries statement.
Let's do it. Yes, just do it. Yeah, just do it. Yes, awesome. Great one. Yes.
Right. Classic. Now. So Aries, buckle up for this season. I don't know about you, Tony, but I just feel like by the end of Pisces season, I feel like I'm laying at the bottom of the pool and really enjoying it, that I'm ready to like rock it on out with that cardinal fire energy.
Yeah, definitely.
So of course, Aries is the beginning of the entire zodiacal year. And the beginning, it's a cardinal sign. So it's the beginning of a season. That is spring in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's got to have that like lift off firepower to get out of that languishing side of Pisces that is near starvation if you didn't, have all your stores organized, when Virgo was doing the harvest and Capricorn was like making sure you didn't eat all the food and die before the spring. But yeah, we have supermarkets now. So, but I'm just saying. So Aries rockets us out, it pushes all the new life through the ground, and we definitely feel that. So take note, everyone, as the planets start to all move into Aries and join the sun, about that energetic shift. It's so apparent between Pisces and Aries. So it's equal with the equinox, spring equinox there, autumn equinox here in the southern hemisphere, which of course equal day and night. You guys are pushing to the longer day. So the only way is up from here for you guys. And fire is energy. It's energy. It's red. I remember seeing something about statistics with wearing colors and winning, and the one in red wins because there's like some weird psychological message / advantage that you're sending. So if you're ever competing with someone, wear that red. It's like, if anyone's actually watching this, look at Tony in that red shirt. He's going to win. He's going to win this food fight. And there's that, the cardinal, tell the person, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to win. I'm going to be just straight out with it. And I'm going to assert my win. And I've already won before we've started. That's that Aries way, pushing ahead. I personally love that. So it rules the head. Speaking of pushing ahead, it's ruled by Mars. It rules the head first. Don't think about it so much as just smash on through. Opposite of Libra, which is like, well, what do you want to do? What's everyone want to do? What's fair? Like that, you'll never get somewhere that quickly with that has its place. But with Aries, they're just meant to push ahead while Libra debates and talks about things. So, and then gets it right, possibly in the end with some due diligence. So I love the assertiveness / aggression of Aries. I'm not yelling, I'm just passionate. And I have to say, I've got moon in Aries and I'm accused of yelling regularly. And I'm just like, I'm just really into this.
Right.
I'm not yelling. I say in a yelling kind of way.
Right.
Aries is the me, the self, the first sign, the baby of the zodiac. So, I like to tell Aries, they're like, me. And they love it. They're like, yes. And then they'll start saying it back. They're very good at being self-aware in that way and bring it back to themselves, asserting the self. So for all of us, we can draw on that, bring it back to the self. I've been doing a bit of stuff with Natalia Benson, who's an Aries, and I noticed her message a lot is literally she uses the word self, bring it back to the self. And I'm like, there's that Aries, and that's what Aries have to teach. as well. Like bring it back to you. Like you have to be centered in yourself to go forth and to stand up for yourself, of course. Aries then, of course, are into self-development. They love all this stuff. There's a lot of Aries in astrology or buying astrology or consuming astrology because they're totally fine with self-development. They want to be their best. You know, it's not so much about just winning. It's like they want to be their personal best and beat their personal best, and you as well, of course, but that's that competitive side of Aries. I think of Tony Robbins has Moon in Aries, and I think he's got one of his big things is like got the word edge in it. Like they like to find their edge. So he's like, find your edge or something like that. But they find that edge by just running full pelt. And once they fall over the edge or hit the wall, they know they found their edge. They don't moderate their energy. So that's also something to just be aware of. Don't like use all your fuel up immediately, but also do have the firepower. Like do take your foot off the brake. Just, you know, pedal to the metal. In some areas, it will be a good time to lift off with things. So they're ambitious, they're athletic, and they're assertive. And that's the solar season. So we've got planets moving in, and I'm really looking forward to it. So what about you, Tony? Any thoughts on the Aries vibe?
It has me thinking about Dr. Joe Dispenza, who has the sun at 1 degree Aries. And so it's that early stage of Aries where everything's kind of new and fresh and dynamic. And he's a spiritual teacher ultimately. And he, you know, Aries can be really interested in expressing or experiencing adventure in their life. And he's a spiritual adventurer. So sometimes we think of adventure as just skydiving, but Joe Dispenza gives us an example of how you can do spiritual exploration and it still can have that Aries vibe where it's like into jumping off into new frontiers and going into places we haven't been before. And some of that is the Sagittarius archetype of the explorer, but with Aries, it's more about that push to do something new. And he also does a really great job of, you were taught before we started the recording, or no, maybe you were just saying it now about the yelling thing, like where people say,
yes, it was
yes.
during this.
So he records meditations for his people, and he almost is like he's like a boot camp meditation teacher. He's like, it's almost like he's yelling at you during the meditation. So he's just got that quality, that really vibrant, let's do this, and he really tries to cheer you on. And he's like, and you even when you're in the audience with them, he does constant check-ins with the audience because he wants to make sure you're still with him and still participating. And he says things like, come on. So he tries to get you into that riled up Aries state. But
yes,
courage, confidence, directness, these are all great Aries keywords, and we have to talk about impatience too, right?
Pitfalls, the pitfalls. Yes, reckless, angry, irritable. They love a dust up. They like it's the gladiator, which is classic signs. The gladiator, that's how they learn. That's how they self-develop. Like they get in and like whack you with their shoulder when they walk past you. Oh, there's the edge. That's the boundary of me, myself. Where do I end and you begin? What is me? Like the baby finding these things out. Head injuries,
Right.
It's launching themselves physically into things. It's a very physical sign as well. So classic signs. My classic sign is Xena Warrior Princess, who played by Lucy Lawless from New Zealand, was huge in America, as I hadn't realized, but on Googling. And she is mega Aries. She's the Aries. She's got ascendant Aries with Sun and Moon conjunct on her ascendant, Saturn in Aries, North Node in Aries, so all in the first. Mars is in Taurus, but it's also in the first, so Mars is also rising. And she was an ex-warlord, the character. There were other people slated to play the role, and they just kept working through candidates till it had to be her. Like, I think the universe kept pushing people aside to get to the mega Aries, whose destiny was to play this. And of course, it was so popular, I think, because they found the right person. And I love that she just was Aries about it. That simple, let's just do it. She wasn't overthinking anything. She didn't plan on becoming a feminist icon of the late 90s millennium. And she didn't like it at the time. Now she realizes how important it was. But at the time, she's like, don't reduce me to 2 words. She just wanted to kick ass and do, great acting and get in there. And in also Googling about it, I thought it was really interesting. So this is what I wrote. Plays an ex-warlord warrior dressed like a gladiator, shoots to fame as a feminist icon, rejected being reduced to 2 words. It was originally a spin-off from Hercules that became more successful, leaving Hercules in its shadow. And Hercules constantly whinging that Xena had equal strength and more powers, and that she shouldn't, and that Hercules should. And as a joke, the crew on his set mocked him by spitting every time her name was mentioned. So just by being her, she's already causing this dust up and this clash sort of thing. But it didn't, she just burns ahead. That's the thing. And I've got a quote from her. She was in an interview. She said, in the back of the car when the kids are driving you crazy, pull out that Arabic wail that Xena used to do, the ululating it's called. She says, pull that one out. It's over. You win. So she's still like, she's beating the kids in her own way and loving it so much that she recounts the story about how you can win.
Right.
Yeah. And what about you, Tony? Who is your classic Aries?
As I was looking through the list, there are so many great ones to choose from. I had a really hard time.
So many.
Ultimately, I went with Aretha Franklin, which was a great pick because she wasn't only filled with Aryan fire as a powerhouse singer, as you, I'm sure, know, but I think if we just think of her in any moment of her singing career, you can see the Aries spirit. But she also fought for justice, fought that like kind of just Aries fight as a civil rights activist. So putting her Aries to good use there as well. Her runaway hit anthem "Respect," which was one of her most famous songs, was originally written and recorded by Otis Redding, who was a Virgo sun but had natal Mars in Aries, which is interesting. But the theme of the song is important in the context of the warrior archetype, which is part of the Sun and Aries domain, because pride and dignity and respect are components of a highly attuned warrior archetype. Honor and respect, whether that plays out as defending one's honor or honorably fighting to defend what's right, it all starts with respect, whether that's respect for the self or also respect for one's worthy opponents, because in that high functioning warrior archetype, you want to be fighting for a just cause and you want to fight a worthy opponent, and anything else is kind of beneath you.
That's a good point, Tony. A good point. And you think of a lot of the like samurais and warrior class that really took it on with a spiritual side as well. Their honor was so important. Yeah. And that they could respect a good fighter, even if they had to kill them or were subdued by them.
Yeah. And when you get the spiritual involved and underneath that, it really can take it to a high level there. But in a classic Aries drenched quote from her autobiography, Aretha Franklin describes herself with the line, "I am Aretha," which I even want to just stop there, because like she starts the sentence like we're in her autobiography. We know she's talking about herself, but she's just that I am Aretha. It's got the I am statement. Yes. Classic, right?
Fantastic.
So it says, "I am Aretha, upbeat, straight ahead, and not to be worn out by men, and left singing the blues." So she's not having it. I love that. Some other folks with the Sun in Aries include Ma Rainey, who you might know as a famous blues singer from back in the day in the United States, here from the recent biopic that was done called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Also Lady Gaga, Gloria Steinem, powerhouse Aries, who's made amazing contributions. She also has a fire moon. She has a moon in Leo. Reese Witherspoon, who's quite a feisty Aries in her own right. Jane Goodall, fighting the good fight to protect on behalf of other creatures in our world. Famous feuding actors, Joan Crawford and Bette Davis were both Aries, and Kristen Stewart, Jennifer Gardner, and then Joe Dispenza, who I mentioned earlier.
So, monthly moons, Tony.
Yeah, what's going on with the monthly moons?
Well, we have got a full moon in Libra, of course, the opposite sign. I'm just looking at the chart now. At 8 degrees Libra, Sun in Aries, 8 degrees on March the 28th, around, late lunchtime. And of course, that's balancing that Aries archetype, to just do it, just me. But what about the other person? It's really balancing those two things. What about, doing something that is your solo adventure, but also putting equal time into, relational side of things. It's balancing. You really can't live for a relationship and put that first. You have to put the people first in the relationship. So you have to be centered in yourself, driving your own, chariot to be a good part of that relationship. So I like that, bringing the polarities into balance there. The sun is going to be exactly conjunct Chiron and Venus. They're all at 8 degrees. So considering what's already coming up, constellating under this Uranus-Saturn square, perhaps with, women, violence, and things like that, that Chiron is in there in Aries, which to me, I've really seen that for the US as gun control and obviously issues with violence of all sorts. It's interesting that the Venus is going to be in there as well, exact. So without going into all of that, firepower and the wounding that can cause as well. So we'll see what really peaks at that time around the 28th. And then we go into the new moon on April 11th. And the new moon in Aries is going to be at 22 degrees Aries. It's also quite close to Venus. Venus is in there and Mercury's in a wide orb as well. So I think it's a good moon to plant those seeds of intention on going for what you want, meeting your desires as Venus, what you love, and being really straightforward with it, communicating your desires, saying what you want. Mercury's in there as well. And wherever that is all falling in, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in Aries. So it's a strong Aries vibe. Whatever part of your chart that's in is going to be like, right, let's get going. What is it that you want to initiate there? What do you need to stand up for yourself and be assertive and not just create boundaries, but, push ahead. What is it that you want to do there? Set those intentions and take some steps, break it down. What even little thing can you do on the day?
I like you brought up the energy of a new seed and a new sprout. And I think it's interesting to have a new moon in Aries because it really is, it's 100%
the newest of the new, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's the rocket fuel for the rest of the year, particularly in the northern, because you are really moving with the sun. You're moving with the energy that's coming through. So it's not a time to go on holiday. I think it's a time to get moving in whatever direction you want, like forge. Where do you want to push through? What's maybe feeling stagnant? Get into a relationship, get out of a relationship, change that relationship, set it on a new, turn into that other lane and push it ahead. Like, the thing I love about Aries is you can fire them up like a toy where you pull the string and you sit it down and just face it in a direction and off it goes.
Right.
So do that to yourself.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
Well, as we move into the headlines, the big news you already mentioned is the Saturn square Uranus. That's all year, and it's Saturn in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus. And during the end of March and most of April, these two planets are going to remain within 2 to 3 degrees from each other all month. But tune into the January podcast to hear more about that important aspect, which speaks to a process that asks us to skillfully integrate our need for personal freedom with our need for personal responsibility. So we've had a couple of webinars on Saturn square Uranus at the website that you can check out at astrologyuniversity.com. So head over there and just type in Saturn square Uranus and those should pop right up, or you can email help@astrologyuniversity.com if you need help finding them. And then in Cosmos and Psyche, in Richard Tarnas's classic book, there's some great stuff on the Saturn Uranus aspect in the Saturn Pluto chapter. Now, he doesn't do a whole chapter on Saturn Uranus, but it's kind of built in there, and there's some really great stuff in there. If you by the way, if you haven't read Cosmos and Psyche, we're going to be teaching an intro on that book next week. It's a book that's famously challenging to read. And if that's been your experience, consider joining us, because me and myself and Saffron Rossi, the other instructor, are going to help make the book more accessible. So check that out. I'll say more about that at the end of the podcast today. But the other big news this month is that Mars is going to, for me personally, is that Mars is going to be out of bounds starting on March 24th, March 21st for about 2 months. So it's going to stay out of bounds until May 24th. That's a long Mars out of bounds cycle. And I'll say more about that one as well shortly, but you'll want to pay extra attention during this Aries season to the aspects Mars makes during this period. You know, it's Aries season, the sun's in Aries, which would be one great reason to track Mars's transits during that month. But with Mars being out of bounds, it's going to kind of take things to the next level, so to speak. And this includes Mars being in Gemini while it's square Neptune and Pisces. So that's one of the major aspects that Mars makes in April, and that's going to be on April 9th. Now, this is an air-water mix, and it highlights mutability, which is also, in other words, adaptability, shift, and necessary change. And Vanessa earlier was talking about just using this Aries energy to kind of push yourself in a new direction. And with all this mutability, it's a great month to really shake things up and try something new. Chuck Palahniuk, sorry, I pronounced his name wrong. Palahniuk, who's the author of Fight Club, has a natal Mars-Neptune square. I love talking about him whenever I talk about Mars-Neptune aspects. And his natal Mars-Neptune square is also an air-water blend. And Mars-Neptune themes dominate his writing, including characters that wrestle with identity confusion, who manage the fallout from taking actions that they didn't intend or that they don't understand. You know, they did something, they're like, why did I do that? And look at the mess I'm in. Or they discover hidden motivations only after taking action. And all of this can be part of that Mars in aspect to Neptune experience. Under a Mars-Neptune aspect, we might have to work through the Neptunian haze or energetic distortion in order to access our Mars. We might get surprised by our actions or by the actions of others. We might experience parts of our psyche that are normally outside of our awareness, but suddenly become accessible through the actions that we take Mars, or that we can gain insight into through Neptunian processes like dreams or through meditation or reverie. I usually recommend regular dream work for people who have Mars-Neptune aspects in the natal chart, because dreams speak the symbolic language of Neptune in a way that waking life doesn't. And dreams can provide a gateway to connecting with those Neptunian parts of our psyche that are famously more difficult to understand, because it's not really about understanding them. It's more about participating with them or experiencing them. And Neptune can also tap us into what we might call source. So my advice is to block out April 6th to 10th for some intentional dream work, intentional for Mars and dream work for Neptune, and also consider not taking any important actions on those days for all of the reasons I just mentioned, because your motivations may not be as clear as you'd like them to be. Instead, you want to use this time to get to kind of dig inside and underneath what those motivations are, to spend more time meditating on your plans, listening to your dreams, tuning into the messages that are coming up. And you might find that new insight emerges about your motivations after this aspect starts to separate. So next we'll talk about there are a couple of important ingresses this month, with the first one with Venus going into Aries from Pisces on March 21st. And one of my favorite images for Venus in Aries is Xena Warrior Princess. So I love that you started with that, Vanessa. But can you tell us a little bit more, or just say some words about Venus going into Aries?
Yes, Venus in Aries. So direct, like, yeah, how do you flirt basically? What are you loving? Like, how are you, what's the relational style? Is Aries themes and keywords, it's direct. It's not checking if someone likes you back first. Aries and Venus just like puts it out there and either gets a no or a yes. Extremely assertive. I've had Venus in Aries people hit on me, and they are very, very direct. they don't check first. they just try it on basically, and you've got to admire that sometimes when you a bit backward and coming forward. So it's
And
it's
it's also common to find them saying things like, they don't get offended by the no, right?
no.
Because it's just like, oh, well, it was worth a shot.
Yeah, because it's an assertive sign. They're willing to pitch things. They like to do, that's how they work out what is going on. They just have to put it out there. It's a yang sign, which means externalizing. So Venus in Aries externalizes those desires rather than, attracts them. It just goes out and gets them. So yeah, have fun. What do you think about Venus in Aries, Tony?
Well, I'm going to actually switch gears here and go to the next one, which is Mercury in Aries. So we'll stick with Aries, but Mercury is in Aries from April 3rd. And as we think about Venus transitioning from Pisces to Aries, and then Mercury from Pisces to Aries, with Mercury, I'll just say, if you've been feeling like it's like, are we still in Mercury retrograde, even though it isn't? You're probably noticing the Mercury and Pisces effect.
Yes.
Which and especially so as Mercury gets closer and closer to Neptune, which is happening as we speak. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But if communication has been feeling a bit too nonlinear or confusing, or things have just been getting like lost in translation, Mercury in Aries may offer a welcome change because of what Vanessa was just saying, because you know where you stand more with Mercury in Aries. It's going to get to the point a lot faster in terms of we're talking about your communication and all of that, with all the things Mercury related, but it comes with speed and potential impatience too, as a potential downfall. You might find yourself blurting things out without thinking, that you find it hard to take back later. The plus side here is that Mercury in Aries can speed up and at the same time simplify communication. So what you say in here might be sharper, but also a bit more clear and direct.
So Tony, are you thinking some speed dating?
Speed dating, yes. With once Mercury's in Aries too, and Venus in Aries, speed dating is totally on the menu.
And what about on all the socials? Do you think there's going to be some Twitter storms, and there's going to be a little bit of there could be a bit of an explosion there? And perhaps it's good to remember the Aries and not get, don't worry about the battle, think about the war. Like, don't get caught up. Don't let someone else control the frame, basically.
That is great advice, because if I could bet money, and I'm not a bettor, I'm kind of averse to taking risks, but I would put money on Twitter wars this month.
So don't get sucked in to someone else's battle.
But coming back to Venus in Aries, as it makes its way through Aries, will square Pluto in Capricorn. And that'll be April 11th or 12th, depending on your location. And this is a date to mark on your calendar. It's another quick one, like the earlier transit I mentioned, but you can include the lead up to the aspect and a day after. So we could say April 9th to the 12th or 13th. So that few days of window there. And with Venus in Aries, your passions might flare up. Venusian passions, what those look like, those have to do with passions that are driven by love, pleasure, or attractions. And Venus in Aries is fired up and ready to go. And with Pluto here, we can add an intensity or maybe even a smoldering quality. Venus in Aries squaring Pluto Capricorn has that feeling also to me of being out of one's depth to some extent. I'm imagining someone flirting in that forward kind of way that Vanessa was describing earlier with the Venus in Aries, but they're flirting with Pluto and Capricorn, so they're getting a bit more than they bargained for.
Yeah, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Don't mess with that, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. So that's an aspect to kind of be cautious around. But I always like thinking about ways that you can embody both sides of the equation in the square, to think about ways of bringing these two energies together in interesting ways that make sense for you. Some folks who you can learn from that have a natal Venus in Aries square Pluto, who did channel some of the steamy energy, include Miles Davis, Elizabeth Taylor, who we talked about last month, musical theater extraordinaire composer Stephen Sondheim, Jane Mansfield, classic actor, a Hollywood actor, and magical realism author Gabriel Garcia Marquez, whose wonderful work you can kind of see Venus squaring Pluto threaded throughout his work.
Well, I have to say I have Venus square Pluto and Mercury, and
Natally?
I've learned to really focus and channel my obsessions and that intensity. You have to
Yeah.
have an outlet when it comes to anything with Pluto and the squares. You have to like find something so it becomes a superpower, because you will never give up. So if you just direct that at a love interest or a person, which can be Venus square Pluto, it's not good, and you'll never be satisfied. So I also think it's uncovering things, it's looking for those, you see the deeper or the taboo, you have that awareness that's being, say, hidden, which is again a lot of the stuff that's really coming up now. So again, with that peak getting, you know, tangled up with the moons as well, and that other, you know, big square that's happening with Uranus and Saturn with Venus in there. Yeah, it's just interesting what's coming up also here in Australia, here in London, with the stuff that's all been hidden. Like it's like a second Me Too wave, friend put it that way. So yeah, but everything is a superpower. Like the more difficult it is, if you can harness that thing, you've got so much behind you. So where even if it's not in your chart, it's happening somewhere for you. We're all tapped in. If it's teeing off your own personal planets, you're going to be more caught up in the firestorm that's happening, or have a real sort of personal feeling for it, or it will be triggering on you more than say other people that might be more observers. Channel
Well,
that intensity.
yes, definitely. Well, the energy shifts. The energy for the first half of April feels really different from the second half, because on April 14th, Venus goes into Taurus, and on April 19th, Mercury goes into Taurus. And I don't want to say an awful lot about that because I'm going to move on to the Declination Report, but I do want to say that I feel like that's going to bring in a little bit of calm, a little bit of intention for peace, and smoothing out some of those ruffles that were created in the social media wars earlier in the month.
And maybe some actual practical culmination, because they're both, you know, that's, if that square is still on, it's between practical like earth signs. So we might actually see something happen. You know, you've got to get that Aries like push through, but then it takes it to an earth sign, which is, well, what are we going to do about it?
Definitely bringing it down to
Grounding
earth.
it in something useful. Yeah. A declination report. Let's go.
Yes, Declination Report. Okay, so during this Aries season, which is basically the end of March through almost the end of April, we're going to have two out of bounds planets. I already mentioned Mars earlier, which is going to be for the whole month of April, but the moon is also going to, for most of this year, the moon's going out of bounds 2 to 3 times a month, and it'll be out of bounds. The moon will be out of bounds March 21st to 23rd, roughly, depending on your location, in Gemini and Cancer on April 3rd to 5th, in Sagittarius and Capricorn, and then again in Gemini and Cancer on April 17th to 19th. Now, these are three, normally I always tell you to mark the moon out of bounds periods on your calendar, but you especially want to note these because the moon's going to be out of bounds at the same time as Mars out of bounds, and that's really important. Mars goes out of bounds on March 21st, depending on your time zone, and it'll stay out of bounds for the rest of March, all of April, and then through May until May 24th. So we'll be talking about it again next month a little bit too. But when the moon's out of bounds, our emotions can get amplified, and our habitual responses can seem to take over, trampling over our rational impulses in some cases. With Mars out of bounds at the same time, we're really going to need to access our best anger management skills. If you've had any training in nonviolent dialogue or conflict management, these skills can come in really handy at this time, as well as imago therapy, if you've ever done that, in which we make an extra effort to listen to and model back what someone's sharing with us, and learn how to speak from our experience rather than making you statements or assigning blame first when we're angry, to learn how to speak from your own experience. So if you don't have any of those techniques, this is going to be a great month to learn them. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Mars is going to be in Gemini, so that when Mercury moves into Aries on April 4th, there will be a reception between those two planets, because Mars is in a sign that Mercury rules and Mercury's in a sign that Mars rules. Now, this can be an asset aspect and a aspect of ease and flow and gifts. But it can also be an asset in terms of thinking quickly, in terms of innovating, in terms of starting a new project or thinking up a new project, especially one that involves communication or sharing ideas. Your insights and ideas might seem to come out of nowhere during this period and also be right on the money, right on track. Your debating skills might be extra sharp during this time as well. But at the same time, you might be inclined to fly off the handle a bit. You might get frazzled really easily, get pulled in too many directions. And the out of bounds part of Mars could have you breaking new ground in a dynamic way. But the shadow side is that you've gone rogue with your plans and you shut out people who could be your allies or who could help you. So to learn more about Mars out of bounds, check out my webinar series on that dynamic at Astrology University. I've got 2 webinars, a part 1 and a part 2, where we go into lots of variations and experiences that people with Mars out of bounds in the natal chart have. Going on to our parallel aspects in the Declination Report, as you know, if you've listened to me talk about this before, parallels can be interpreted like conjunctions between planets, but they're especially important when they coincide with conjunctions at the same time. Planets that are both conjunct and parallel, that's the strongest kind of aspect between 2 planets. Now, we just missed the mark on that this month. If you were with us last month, you remember we had a couple of those that I hope you took advantage of. This month, we have Mercury forming a conjunction with Neptune on March 29th and 30th in Pisces. And just as they start to separate, Mercury forms a parallel with Neptune on March 31st and April 1st. So the conjunction forms first, and then the conjunction Mercury starts to separate from Neptune, and that's when the parallel comes into play. So we don't have them exactly parallel and conjunct at the same time, but within a day. And this is also going to draw out the Neptune-Mercury vibe a bit longer because they form one aspect and then they form another back to back. So we've got this basically from March 29th to April 1st, you can think of as good days to think about this aspect being at play, which is going to accentuate the dreamy creative expression of Mercury, with Mercury being in Pisces. It'll also emphasize nonlinear communication with attunement to symbolic thinking, and sometimes symbolic thinking instead of literal thinking. If you're someone who struggles with tapping into intuition, these 4 days from March 29th to April 1st could be good days to start practicing. So you could start by asking for guidance each day about something specific. This is one practice that you can implement to start to learn how to tap into your own intuition. So think about something that you want, or something that you have a question about, or something you want to learn something about. And in the morning, before you start your day, you can, I think it really helps to write them down. But if you don't write them down, say it out loud. Don't just like leave it in your head, like do something with it, activate it, and ask for guidance, ask to be shown signs and signals, and then pay attention to what happens that day. Give your feelings more weight than your rational thoughts while Mercury in Pisces is conjunct Neptune, and see where that takes you. Anything you want to add to any of that, Vanessa?
I think that the actionable steps is a really big takeaway for this month generally. So write your own action steps. Break it down to something you can do today.
Awesome. Well, that takes us up to, I'm going to insert our nonprofit break in the middle of the show today. And each month we feature a nonprofit on our podcast that we support with a donation. And we also encourage you to support. And the nonprofit I'd like to tell you about this month is the Equal Justice Initiative. The Equal Justice Initiative is committed to ending mass incarceration and excessive punishment in the United States, which is a serious problem. Also to challenging racial and economic injustice, and to protecting basic human rights for the most vulnerable people in American society. A really great nonprofit to feature during Aries season. This hardworking nonprofit provides legal representation to people who've been illegally convicted, unfairly sentenced, or abused in state jails or prisons. They challenge the death penalty, and they also challenge excessive punishment and provide reentry assistance to formerly incarcerated people. Please reach out through their website and make a donation to support their great and challenging work today at their website, eji.org. So very easy website. E is in Edward, J is in I can't think of a J
Janis
word.
Joplin.
Janis Joplin, yes. J is in Janice. I is in ice cream. That's what I have. All right, so definitely. Yeah, iPad, yes. Okay, so stop by eji.org today and support their mission. And that takes us to Opportunity Knocks. And
Yes.
in this segment, we talk about some of the opportunity transits. So we're looking at sextiles and trines happening this month. And we'll start out with this one on March 21st, where we have Mercury in Pisces, trine Uranus in Taurus. In addition, we have another opportunity transit the same day, Mars in Gemini, trine Saturn in Aquarius. So we've got 2 trines. We've got a lot of mutability. We've got a bit of earth, a bit of air happening. And at the same time, on that same day, Mercury's also square Mars in Gemini. So it's a bit of a complex blend of, it's a quite complex blend of energies here. But if you're tapping into some of the energies that are part of the trine, I think that there's some opportunity for ease and flow there. But whether you're going for the Mercury trine Uranus or the Mars trine Saturn, you're still going to encounter a square there between Mercury and Mars. So there's a bit of friction, bit of dynamic energy, but also some opportunity for ease and flow as well. With Mercury and Pisces, remember we were talking earlier about Mercury and Pisces, which is going to form that conjunction with Neptune. I was just scooching up here to see. Oh, it's March 29th. Mercury conjuncts Neptune. So we're talking about a week before that. But Mercury's still in Pisces, trine Uranus and Taurus. But these are solutions that are, if you just think Mercury and Uranus, you might think cerebral, kind of opportunities for genius. Often people will talk about genius with Mercury Uranus aspects, but this is not your kind of average, totally objective, linear, by the books kind of Mercury. This is Mercury in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus. So really complicated expressions of these 2 planets. And so these are aspects of flow that are, I feel like, a bit more based on intuition, internal guidance, following signs, symbols, and omens with Mercury and Pisces, and going with the flow, really with all that mutability as well.
Sextile as well, I think you meant to say. I think you were saying trine.
Did
sextile?
I say trine? Is it a sextile?
Yeah, Mercury.
You're right. Yes, you're right.
Pisces
Thank you.
To Taurus. Definitely
Totally.
Breakthrough with Mercury and Uranus. Breakthrough is a word I always like to think of, pushing through easily or getting confronted with a new concept or idea, and you can actually integrate it with ease rather than get knocked by it.
And I think of it as that Einstein kind of breakthrough with Mercury and Pisces, where the great, brilliant insight comes to you in a dream.
Yes, catnap. Like
it's not because you sat there and worked really hard to think it out. It's like it feels like a real breakthrough.
Yeah, it comes from a different place.
And it is the sextile. The Mars aspect to Saturn is a trine, though. So Mars in Gemini, trine Saturn in Aquarius. Mars Saturn trine is a really great get something done, get something tangible done, make something happen energetic. So this could be a good day to capitalize on some of that energy. They're in air signs, so this might be in the realm of thoughts or communication. So the action might be having a conversation with somebody or on that level. But definitely a good aspect for getting something done. On March 29th, we already talked about Mercury and Neptune conjuncting in Pisces. So we'll move on to April 10th, where we have Venus in Aries, sextile Jupiter in Aquarius. Normally, I recommend this date for a good electional, but since it's the last day of the balsamic moon, just before the new moon, I might hold back on using that energy to start something new. But with the balsamic moon, I like to use those dates for taking action of letting go of something or something like that. So something to activate the energy of the balsamic moon, where the moon has really gone dark, right? And it's coming into that moody, dark, anything could happen kind of potential phase just before the new moon. So you'd want your action taken on that day to kind of reflect some of that energy. And then on April 16th, Mars and Gemini trine Jupiter in Aquarius. These are in air signs, and I think this is a good aspect to look for fresh opportunities. Block this day for a physical outing as well, because Mars trine Jupiter can give you a burst of energy that you might want to take advantage of. If you're feeling energetic on those days, I say have a little adventure. Being an air sign, this could be an adventure of the mind, but it's possible it could also be a physical adventure given the planets, Mars and Jupiter here. This could also be a great travel day if that's safe and appropriate for you where you're at. The last thing I want to mention here under opportunity knocks are some good electional days. And I have April 5th and 6th marked during the waning moon cycle. And those could be, as I said earlier, good days for taking action, letting go of something. And then after the new moon, which is a little bit better for things that you want to grow or new starts, look at April 13th when the moon's in Taurus, and there's some good aspects that day. And then also look at April 16th and 21st for some of those good actions. Anything that you want to add here, Vanessa?
Just that there are a lot of sextiles this month. There's 11. There's 11. There's only 2 trines. There's 11 sextiles. So lots of moments of opportunities if you put that little bit of effort in. And again, with the Aries, just having a debate, pitching something, following a thought on something and seeing where you end up with that. I agree with the Mars and Saturn. That is such a fantastic combination. I think of people that have that in their charts, like David Beckham, the English soccer player, and they say you bend it like Beckham because he may have Mars in Pisces, which is not known for sport prowess, but that Saturn grounds the magic and look what you can come up with. So it's in different signs, but still it's extremely practical and productive, focused action that lands the goal, to use sports talk.
Yeah, and with all those sextiles have a real stimulating kind of energy. So there could be a lot of stimulation. There could be a lot of bouncing around ideas. There's a lot of air happening as well. Bouncing around ideas, bouncing around, trying something new, and seeing where it goes, and just being willing to kind of go with the flow and open up to some of those connections.
Yeah, have the conversations. I agree. Open up to connections that pop up on your radar, and also, take in new concepts and information and see what constellates, because they're air signs and it's opportunity with ease. You can jump that next level with understanding something, or also developing your own ideas on a particular topic that you're working on.
Definitely. And that takes us to what's on your coffee table.
Well, Tony, what isn't on my coffee table? Let's start. It's probably a shorter list. So I have been doing a juggernaut journey of rock star mythologists and classicists. So now I'm on to Natalie Haynes, who is English. Haynes, and she has written a book called Pandora's Jar: Women in the Greek Myths. I haven't started reading the book, but I listened to a quick interview about it just to get the idea to chat about it today. And this is a quote from, the book page. Modern tellers of Greek myth have usually been men and have routinely shown little interest in telling women's stories. When they do, those women are often painted as monstrous, vengeful, or just plain evil. But Pandora, the first woman who, according to legend, unloosed chaos upon the world, was not a villain. And even Medea and Phaedra have more nuanced stories that generations of retelling might indicate. And I never really got that much into Greek myths because, to be quite honest, I always thought they come off as a bit rapey and not very nice as a female reading them. There's not much of interest, but they're still interesting. So, here's this Pluto Mercury square that I've got, like, dig, dig, dig. What's not being told here? So the female classicists are digging up those earlier stories and those other editions and those other ones that are just as valid, because there's no just one story. We have just ended up with that, and they've been retold to basically reinforce this patriarchal paradigm that we're living in. And so that's becoming really fascinating to me, and I'm turning into my dad with following history. And of course, I'm doing this because it's relevant also to astrology, because we base so much of our understanding of archetypes, therefore reinforcing our reality. So let's open it up. And it's fascinating. It's really great for the newbie as well. It's not super academic. She's also a comedian, so she's very entertaining. And so that's on my coffee table. What's on your coffee table, Tony?
Well, speaking of archetypes, mine is The Hero Within, Six Archetypes We Live by Carol Pearson. It's a classic that I know a lot of our listeners have probably read or heard about. It's been around for quite some time. I think it was first, it's been published in a few different versions. I think it was first published in 1986. And the version I'm reading was revised and republished in 98. And it is amazing. I cannot recommend this book enough. I'm just loving it. This one's covering 6 archetypes. In other books, she goes through other archetypes. If you're into astrology, you're going to recognize some of these archetypes really strongly. You know, one of them is called the warrior. Some direct hits there with Mars and Aries. Also the orphan, the innocent, the magician, the wanderer, the altruist. What I love about this book is that she really gets inside the archetypes in practical ways. Now, she's a Jungian and she's got a PhD, so she could have written this book in a way that was a bit challenging to approach, and she didn't do that at all. It's very, very accessible. It's almost all practical information. She does a lot of explaining through storytelling in ways to kind of connect with the archetypes, and both in terms of some of the benefits and blessings, and also some of the challenges that come up and some of the pitfalls and some of the ways we can get stuck in the archetypes. And it's, you know, the benefits of this book are similar to the benefits of using astrology, which is as you understand and can recognize the patterns more, and then especially so you can learn to recognize some of the shadow expressions, you can learn how those same archetypes can be turned around into something positive. So really, really wonderful, wonderful book. I can't wait to finish it. I was trying to cram it all into my reading day yesterday. I got halfway through, so got about half of the book left, and I can't wait to pick it up.
It looks like a huge book for anyone listening and not watching as well. It's a big book. You read fast.
Oh no, it's not that big. It just looks big on TV. No, it's like 330 pages or something like that. So it's nothing like Cosmos and Psyche.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're going to be reading next week. So what about your takeaways? What are your takeaways for this month?
Takeaways is what I've been saying really is really get that initiating firepower, that initiating energy going, and strap yourself to that rocket, basically. Like fire up, get some action, get some movement. We didn't say in the pitfalls, actually get a physical outlet for the energy of this month as well. You know, direct it and get it out in a healthy way. That's why sport is often associated with Aries. It's ruled by Mars, you know, it's externalizing energy. Watch where that, if it's building up, that energy or anger or assertiveness or aggression is going, like you aim it at something that's practical for you to get you where you want to go.
Awesome.
And what about you, Tony?
I have used this month to learn something about Mars, because Mars is in the news. Mars is in the astro news in a big way. We have, you know, with the sun being in Aries, Mars out of bounds, and everything we talked about in the podcast episode. Read about Mars in your favorite astrology books. So dig back in, dig into some Mars webinars, but also reflect on Mars in your own birth chart. Think about how you respond to conflict. Do you have healthy tools for expressing your anger? Think about, what are you willing to stand up for in your life? Do you have a strong sense of self-respect and self-worth? And do you have respect for those who are in your close personal sphere as well? Any of these questions can be a gateway to exploring Mars in your own life. Also, you might consider taking a self-help or spiritual workshop that has to do with conflict or anger. These are things that all of us can always use more work on. Watch a motivational video about overcoming fear and learning how to take action. That could be a good use of your time this month as well. If you have a hard time accessing your drive to take action, or you've been afraid to take action for some reason, consider taking that next step by activating your courage that you know is inside you and that I know is inside you. And just think about, what's the first step? Like, I don't have to go all in, but what's the next step on my journey, even if it scares me, and can I take that next step this month?
I love that. Yes, excellent advice.
And how about monthly mantras?
Monthly mantras, just do it. That's it.
You just have to, you have to just do it like that with the Aries. It's got to be short and sweet and to the point, because
Yeah.
I'm already bored and on to something else.
Yeah, no wasting time with lots of words.
Yes.
Just do it. Action speaks louder than words as well.
That's great. I shortened mine this month. I didn't shorten them as much as you, but I have, I respect myself enough to aim for my personal best at all times. And I see fear and conflict as opportunities for growth.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's excellent, because it's finding a different, it's like a hack to things that we often avoid, isn't it? It's just see it as in a different way, a different perspective. It's a chance, it's an opportunity. Like, I love that. Excellent. Excellent work,
What's the
Toby.
opportunity in it? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then you start to play with it. Then you get in the game, you know,
Mhm.
or choose not to. You have that choice.
Just get in the game. That could be a good Sun and Aries mantra.
And ignore, like, I love how Brene Brown has that great advice of, if other people are not in the ring, if the critics are not in the ring, just ignore them.
Yeah.
You know, don't let someone stop your Mars and rain on your Mars parade if they're on the sidelines hurling criticism at you, or if you have a fear of that. Like, are they even in the ring? Are they a peer or a mentor that might have some good critical advice for you, not just someone like rah-ring from the sidelines?
Definitely. Well, thanks for listening, folks. Before we go, I want to tell you about some things coming up at Astrology University. I mentioned earlier Cosmos and Psyche, and on March 24th, we start 2 new courses, and one of those is Introduction to Cosmos and Psyche. And in this course, we're going to unpack insights from one of the most important astrology texts of our times. This is my Desert Island astrology book. If I could only take one book with me, that's the one I would take. Your instructors, which will include me and Professor Saffron Rossi from Pacifica, will guide you with tips for making this often challenging to read book easier to read and also appreciate, while deciphering its inspiring and potentially life-changing message. I read the first chapter of Cosmos and Psyche at a time when I was kind of immersed in this existential angst period of my life, and it changed everything for me. So it's got a beautiful message, even though it can be challenging to take in. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help guide you through the book. We won't be reading the entire book. If you've seen the book, we won't be reading the entire book in 4 weeks. We'll just be reading sections of it. And we're going to read the astrology section where he outlines the planets and talks about archetypes, and some of the first chapters where he sets up some of the big ideas. And then we're going to read the Saturn-Pluto chapter. And we did that because we started this course last year. We started it during the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of 2020. And the recordings we made the recordings of the course then, and also the Q&A recordings then, include some very rich conversations where we're having a deep exploration of the Saturn-Pluto cycle through the reading, but also experiencing it in real time. So I've included those recordings in this new version of the course so that you can kind of benefit from some of those conversations. And we'll be having new conversations this year. So I hope you can tune in with us next week for that. That'll include 4 live Q&A sessions, all the reading assignments and homework, and head over to astrologyuniversity.com/events to learn more. The second course starting next week is Timing Cycles with Transits. Now, this is an intro course on working with transits where you can learn how to use this very classic and powerful timing technique, which is the foundation of most modern timing readings in astrology. And you'll learn how to identify important transits, how to interpret transits, and how to approach forecasting or prediction in ways that are life-affirming and supportive of both yourself and your clients. To deepen our understanding in this course, we're going to review chart examples to see how key events in people's lives reflected their planetary transits at the time they were happening, to discover insights that we can use for working with those same transits when they come up in our lives. And this course is co-taught by myself, Kelly Surtees, and Darby Costello. So I hope you can tune in for that one. And last but not least, on March 27th, we have a new webinar with Demetra George called The Hidden Spiritual Symbolism in Traditional House Meanings. And in this talk, Demetra is going to look at religious, philosophical, mythological, and spiritual beliefs from the Hellenistic era that are encoded into the ancient names and meanings of the 12 houses. Demetra is going to share insights to give you perspective to simultaneously understand both the worldly and sacred interpretations for planets and houses. So I I hope you can tune in for that one as well. And what's going on for you this month, Vanessa?
Well, continuing just in the background with all the research and everything, writing, so available for readings as always. So come and check out your chart, learn more about it, or the transits that are happening. I do quite like that kind of thing, predictive. I do both. I've got good news on cosmic power. It's through Anthropology now as well, which I quite like. It's such a creative store. I like their approach. And learn more about the Aries vibe through cosmic power. I've put in all these different sections with even yoga poses that will, push that Aries vibe, get that energy going, the back bends that open up the chest that lift your energy, and lots of other bits and pieces, as well as balancing, go to the other sign that's the opposite to balance that, because Aries shouldn't just do all that stuff. That's how anyone can get in touch with their Aries vibe. And
Nice.
The Mars section in Star Power, my book Star Power as well, has got a lot of great advice on how to use your Mars.
Awesome.
Also, yes. And have a really great Aries month. Enjoy the Aries vibe. Fire up.
Fire up, everybody. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
we're going to let you go because you have stuff to do.
That's right. You're busy. You're busy winning.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Well, take care, Vanessa, and we'll see you again next month.
Thanks, Tony. Bye for now and stay cosmic.